Of what hey, well equipped. All right, good. We're still in morning, so good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, and thank you for coming and participating in what's going to be a discussion base. So this is you're like, well, who is anybody else coming to talk with you? I'm not going into we're not going to do journalism theory, or we're not going to talk about public sphere theory or anything like that. It's not that kind of class. But this is really I wanted to have an opportunity to extend the conversation from this morning, plenary, to really getting more into some nitty gritty, talking about best practices or what people are doing at centers right now in terms of like making pivots into whether you're extending something that can be considered as a form of, community news programs. I'd love to learn more about what people are doing. If you're thinking about starting something up, but just don't know where to begin, how to kick things off, what are some like this is, I wanted to have this like this space for us to just share all of that knowledge, and so we can build on that because I think it's very important right now. So I am, a very, very important part. Come on in, sir. And actually, before I just keep going, because I just keep talking, I'll start. Because that's what I do with my students. I'm like, and then I'm like, who is this guy talking? Like, what? How did I learn all this stuff? How do I know all this stuff? But yeah, so I am Antoine Haywood, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Florida. Go Gators. College of Journalism and Communications. Yes, I am a native Floridian. I was born and raised in West Palm Beach, Florida, and but I spent time outside of Florida for almost 30 years working in public access in Atlanta first, where I started doing youth media at People TV. So some people know me from even way back in them days, and then I transitioned to help build Philly Cam, so Philadelphia Community Access Media. And I was the membership and outreach director there. And so I have, total 15 years of practitioner experience, which then in 2018, I pivoted to academia because I was like, all these people are hitting me up about like my expertise and knowledge. I might as well make this official and get these 3 letters after my name. Go and get back into the classroom was one important thing for me, is to start, because I realized like at this, I'm like, who's passing the torch on? How is the younger generation getting put on to, this work that we do in the community, and understanding its like greater significance, and then also it's like, these universities and academia, there's access to resources too that we can leverage, so it's like a part of my work is like leveraging resources that benefits the communities from the inside of the academy, right? And then also like I've got to a point where I realized like there was a gap in terms of telling the story about the significance, the value and the relevance of the work that's done through community media centers, right? And that few and few. So back in the day when people so shout out to John Higgins, who just walked in the room, who I cite his work up and down in my dissertation and everything. So back in the 80s and the 90s, there was an abundance of access media centers. And there was actually, so when John was working on his dissertation, there were more scholars who were citing, because it was exciting. It's like, wow, television as the public sphere, and what democratic participation in television, like public access, what is this thing, But, attention, of course, has shifted to digital platforms, right? But there's still there's a very, very, very important argument to be made, though, about, our continued relevance, in the digital age, if we will. So that gets at the crux, though, too, like my research agenda. And I think it's very important that, there's research for the sake of like academic knowledge, like there's academic, like navel gazing, like kind of research, and academia does need that because it needs to critique itself. It needs to check itself, and ask questions like why communication is, hashtag communication so white, right? But there's also academic pursuits that's more the form of action research, right? You may have heard of participatory action research, or youth, which is YPAR, youth participatory action research. So action research meaning that it actually serves, you're doing research that serves a public interest, that research that the data that you're collecting and that you're synthesizing, it has some form of, I can send it to Mike Wassenaar and say, Mike, and many others, it's like, does this data like actually help you make a case for when you are lobbying? right, on Capitol Hill, or you're lobbying in your local, in your backyard, you know. So so that is very, very meaningful to me. And what is happening right now is there is a great need for understanding of how, right, what the field of access media looks like at this point, what kind of assets that we have to offer to community, that we do offer to communities, and how do we benefit communities. So everything from training workshops to, you know, voter guides that we talked about, like what does all of that look like? There's a whole world of people that don't know, right? And so, you know, I've been working with groups like News Futures and forming other partnerships to, like, you know, let's do some research and let's write some, you know, op-eds, and let's write some like think pieces and things that kind of like elevates, you know, this topic into this broader conversation that's happening right now about the future of local news, you know? So, that said, we are gathered here today to have a lively discussion about my pedagogy is participatory, you know, surprise, surprise, coming from being a community engagement director and a youth media coordinator. But and then, you know, I carry that on in the classroom of, you know, I want to hear from you, you know, I want to hear, like, what are your thoughts? What are you maybe grappling with? And, you know, get some cross-pollination that happens happening in the room. Before we get into, and I do have some questions that that I'm going to share with everyone. But let's so this is kind of my I'm not slide deck heavy today. I got 3 slides, but this is the one. The second one is going to have actually a visioning exercise I'd like for us to engage in. But, you know, we'll do some introductions, and then we'll get into you know, some discussions. Introductions will be helpful for us, you know, because to orient ourselves. The bigger point too here that is, I think, is mutually beneficial. I'm glad that CMAC is recording this, is to hear, like, I've started working with the News Futures Working Group and, you know, and others there's a huge need for, like, collecting case studies, right? And so concrete examples of, look at how this, you know, this is how Olelo is, right? You guys, you've had history in doing local news for a long time. So there's that, right? Calling attention to that history, and then, like, this is what the influence has been, you know, and the value of this actual service provided to the community. But then you may have another operation, you know, that, I mean, shout out to my friend, I would just call out Chad, you know, of Create TV, that may be like, well, we actually want to pivot to maybe a youth news program. I don't know if Chad's thinking this, but but, you know, if they were like, oh, well, what about, like, youth news and news defined broadly, journalism defined broadly? I want to underscore that too, you know. And so when you hear me, those words coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking of it in a very broad way, not journalism with a capital J, not you know, Woodard and Bernstein hopping out, you know. So we know that story, right? And we need that journalism. We need the investigative. We need the hard-hitting news, you know, and breaking news also does help us keep it informed. But there's still a huge gap, right? And so, what are some very creative ways, unfortunately, that we have access, we have resources where we can be very creative in serving local news and information needs. And so that's what I want to, you know, I'm like, let's start building up those narratives about as case studies in this field. Along those lines, so we do have the Community Media Alliance working group that was a part of, you know, News Futures. We have a site where we're building as, like, almost as a repository, if you will, like a call of, like, case studies. And so we have some that have started. Autumn, who's here from Davis Media Access, wrote a really nice case study, and so did you know, Matt Schuster, who is here. But we want to expand that, you know, and we also want to put images there, you know, short videos, so people can start to see and hear. I think is one thing when we talk about what we do, but when you see the thing in action, right, as well as, like, read an explanation that gives context, it starts to make it real, especially for people who aren't familiar, right, with the value of our work and the missions and the purpose of it. So so that's something that, you know, moving forward, I'd love to connect with people on. I want to make sure I get contact information from folks. I also, I'm going to point your attention to, I am initiating a virtual meetup for people in the community media space who want to have a regular conversation. We'll probably do it like maybe every other month, but a virtual meetup for folks that it's an extension of this in the room. I sent out an email on the listserv about this, and so there's a link where you can fill in the form. I'm collecting contact information, so I just want to remind everybody about that. But I wanted to use this opportunity to do this in person see how it goes, reflect, and then move forward. We'll have the virtual it'll be Zoom, and something similar to like the ACM policy call, which is happening today, right, Mike? And is in an hour and 10 minutes, right? So similar vibe. Okay. All right. So that said, let's get moving because we have a lot of people in the room, and I would like to just. I know this is going to take time, but I really believe I do this at orientations. When I did orientations, it's just to get a sense of who's here, and of course, my favorite question: what's bringing you joy right now? So let's start over here and let's just make our way through the room, and then we'll transition into discussion.
My name is Chris Verdugo, Operations Director for Contra Costa County. I'm on the regional board. What motivates my work is knowing that I can always build something to help make a difference. We don't have a nonprofit community media space, and so local government, how can we best use those instruments of government to help continue this mission that we're all on? And that brings me joy to know that there's new avenues to pursue, especially with journalism, and we'll keep it going. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Roger McKagan with Olelo Community Media out of Honolulu, and what motivates me in my work is I honestly believe that there's a lot of needs in our various communities, and there are resources to address those needs. The problem is, resources don't make it to the people who need them. And one of the best things we can do is attach the two, whether it's through our media centers, or it's because we're at the right luncheon and meet this guy who needs something from that guy. And that's how we do a lot of our work too, but then we also want to share that with others. And there's another great joy right now is that I just ordered a brand new electric scooter that's somewhere between Denver and Honolulu.
Be careful with those. I've seen some nasty collisions on campus because of students fly with those things. I'm like, sir, can we slow down?
My name is Mark Tovar. I'm a retired videographer from an aerospace company, but for the last 12 years, been working for a nonprofit in Stockton restoring a U.S. naval minesweeper. We are close to being done, maybe 2 more years, but I started bringing my DSLR camera and recording not only the work going on, but when veteran sailors have come aboard, I've just put microphones on and say, tell me your story. And they just start talking. They won't shut up. They just go on and on. One time we were in a hurricane. So it's just a lot of fun. But it's going to make a great finale, I guess, because we're going to be a museum ship in downtown Stockton. And I guess the greatest joy is just getting those veteran stories before they pass away.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys fought in Vietnam, they fought in Korea, and they're going to be up there. But their wives have always come since I never heard them talk so much about the Navy until they came aboard that ship.
Yeah.
So that's...
it triggers all those memories it brings up.
Anybody in the Navy? No? Okay.
100-year-old father, Korean War vet, and I've just started hearing stories.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bring him to Stockton, bring him aboard USS Lucid. We're on Facebook page. Okay.
Gordon Bartos, retired. I was in education, government access my whole career. Right now, what motivates me is getting people voice in the times that we're at. I did a short video during the President's Day protest in Fort Bragg, which is a small community of 8,000. And there were 200 people showed up. And it was it was the biggest viewership of any of the videos I've done in the last few years. And so I want to, that's what's bringing me joy right now, is to engage with people and allow them to speak out and share their concerns.
Yes, yeah.
My name is David Colmaris. I'm the Executive Director of Community Media The Foothills. We're actually located in Monrovia, California, adjacent to Pasadena.
Okay.
And I think what motivates me the most these days is just being able to tell people stories and engaging with the community and basically just trying to stop all the cynicism from permeating into our brains, everything that's going on. the federal government. And that is part of my joy too, is just giving people a voice and making sure that they have a platform that they can use and showing underrepresented people. So just, that's mostly what I really find joy in the job that I do.
I'm Fred Lawson. I'm actually on David's board. I'm the treasurer, so I'm one of the new guys. We have a new board. We've had an exciting past, so we have a new board that's changing a few things. So my motivation is I'm retired. I'm a business guy, so I'm kind of one of the business guys on the board that's fixing a bunch of boring things with KGM right now. Their financial accounting system, which is not David's passion. But we're kind of working on that. Other things like bringing in a retirement system. They had none, so we're putting one in. So stuff like that. So what brings me joy right now? Actually, kind of the same things. We have a new accountant, bookkeeper who looks great. That brings me joy because now the financial accounting is actually going to add up and be on time, as opposed to what it has been. And David's going to have a retirement system.
Let's go across. We need a big zigzag all the way back. Yes.
My name is Trisha Allen. I'm with Ho'ike Kauai Community Media on the island of Kauai. And I'm the news and events producer there. I was hired to produce a weekly show that informs the community about what's going on around the island. And that's really what motivates me, is connecting the community. As small as the island is, the west side of the island and the east side of the island don't often get to hear about each other. So just kind of bridging the gap between everybody that lives in our little community is really what's motivating me. And what brings me joy is just people. I genuinely love people, all different types with different experiences, and so being in this environment with all of you from all over the place is what's bringing me joy right now. So thanks.
My name is Alex Doherty. I'm at KMPT in Mountain View, California. I am brand new to the organization, just started last month, but I've been kind of doing freelance work for the last year or so, and seeing the aspects of community media that I kind of started out with in college. I ran a TV station on my campus, and then I got into filmmaking and screenwriting, and then I got into video game production, and then I moved, and so I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I started teaching kids creative writing, and then the pandemic came, and I did like photography, videography, and got kind of back into that, and so I was like, come full circle. And so what brings me joy is enabling people to like tell their story and learn the tools and do all that. And it's kind of every job I've ever had, I end up in a role similar to that. So I'm hoping to do the same thing. Awesome.
Yeah, so my name is Alexa Bronza. I'm a community media assistant here at CMC in Fresno. I used to work in journalism for a few years, so I feel like the biggest takeaway was, everyone has a story to tell. I used to be really, really introverted and shy, but like after being able to report and interview people, it's like I love asking questions because everyone has a story. And I think that's the big motivating factor behind my work too. Being able to provide all the resources here and equipment, facilities, everything here, so that people have that opportunity to tell their story on their own. And I would say that kind of brings me joy as well. Meeting people from all walks of life, from comedians and actors and musicians, so very inspiring.
My name is Smiley. My affiliation is with CMAC. I'm from Southern California, though. I just moved here a few years ago. Lifelong educator, university level, and also mostly grant writing. Earth systems modeling, climate change is a real thing. We were talking about it back in the day. Now people are really seeing it. Can't deny it. So what motivates my work? Community engagement. How else can I say this? Getting the word out. we got to get the word out, but we also got to receive what is the word, from the community. So I love that, and that gives me joy making a difference. In Fresno County, I don't know if you guys know about the city of Huron. I work on I'm also a community investigative journalist. I wrote some pieces about Huron, and we did video work. They don't have a high school. Every day, these kids have to go and take an hour-and-a-half bus ride to go to Coalinga, which stands for the Coleman Station A for the railroad. There's a long history behind it, but anyway, that's not right in this county. And so, things like that, trying to make a difference.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Ward. I am an apprentice out of Catharsis Media. We run the New Mexico Education Access Channel in Albuquerque. I went to school for media journalism, and I was the culture editor for my student publication, which was mostly just writing articles, and like we didn't have a very strong like actual media side of that. Like the video portion wasn't really, it was definitely lacking, and I've seen that kind of transfer over to the station where our news side is like there's not much going on. Like I help show run. My boss, she runs a talk show that's called The New Agenda, and that's really focused on talking to people in the community and stuff. But there's less coverage on actual current events happening, and that's kind of like my big focus with the company I'm at, is trying to figure out how we can increase that engagement in our community and get more coverage actually of what's going on. So we'll be going out to the state capitol and like trying to cover protests and stuff, and trying to figure out how to get that actually covered more often.
Hi everybody, I'm Richard Turner. I'm currently the Service Executive Director of the Community Media Center of Carroll County in Maryland. And I guess I'm one of the gray hairs in the movement. What motivates me is George Stoney. Please Google George Stoney if you're involved in this movement. And I actually have two joys. One is to see all the new faces that are here at this conference. It's inspiring. The second joy is that currently my crew back in Maryland is currently taking an engagement with a local nonprofit called Find Your Purpose. They work primarily with youth and young adults, which we've been attempting to try and track. We've been trying to figure out how to work with them for 2 years. And finally we realized the first thing to do was karaoke night. So it's within the spirit and inspiration of Dirk Coney, who said, if they need a bell, just give them a bell. If they need a megaphone, give them a megaphone. They needed a karaoke party.
Cool. I love that. It reminds me actually of a point that Donnie had brought up in the plenary about just having a meal with people, like breaking bread with people. Like that goes a far way. So the community that I come from, the African American community, in the South, like breaking bread is like, that's a forming a bond, and I know that that's just not like a Black Southern thing. Like I know that stretches out to Hawaii, right? So I think even like thinking about these, we're talking about, how we like initiate a local news or participatory community news program or doing the info news section, like starting with breaking bread, not just like, hey, so what kind of journalism do you want to do, not starting there, but being a little bit creative about it. So thank you for raising that point. Karaoke night, go for it. Yeah, right.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Nigg. I'm the Outreach and Development Manager at CMAC. I have a long background in media production, started in high school, really wanted to do something that was community involved. Was lucky enough to get to Fresno State, intern with CMAC, and just moved through the ranks there. That's really what motivates my work, is just talking about CMAC, helping folks learn what we do here. I also do a lot of grant writing, so I get to I love writing as well, so that's really nice. I also teach over at Fresno State in the journalism department. I teach the studio news production class, and that's what brings me joy right now. We just had our first live newscast yesterday, and they just knocked it out of the park, so very excited.
Hi everyone, my name is David Samuel. I'm a student at Fresno Pacific, and I'm a part of the school newspaper team that we're kind of bringing back after about a 5-year hiatus. what motivates my work? That's an interesting question. Shallow motivation, sometimes is spite, and youthful angst and rage. But I think what gives my work purpose is that I've lived in a few different countries now, and one thing that I've learned from multiple cultures and religions and things is that there's more that we have in common than what divides us. And in fact, the divisions only really exist because we created them. So what brings me joy is with my education, learning communication and philosophy, kind of figuring out taking these abstract concepts and figuring out systems and rhetoric and approaches to really dissolve these issues that we've really built up. And additionally, just feeling in purpose and alignment with where I'm at right now in my life. I tell people that I'm in university to slow down. I've worked in like 3 different industries in as many years, and I've learned a lot from that, but almost, would have burnt out by 40 if I kept doing it. So what brings me joy is a space like this. Hearing people say that, that people who build bridges, community builders, and there's a sense of, they're not just buzzwords to people in this room. Like we love throwing them out there as like organizations and institutions, but I can tell it really means something to people here. So, very good job.
We're here to keep you from crashing out, so yeah. Thank you.
I'm Carly Starr. I'm the executive director of KFCT Television in Oceanside, California, which is on the way to San Diego. It's a beautiful, cool, diverse place. We kept it old school. We are a TV station. That's what I'm trying to keep alive over there because I feel it's very important for everyone to have a voice at the table. My whole life I've been a filmmaker. When they'd hang girl curtains in a film department instead of a camera. So I've been doing this my whole career. I started at KFCT Television as an intern. And then I was blessed enough to go up to Hollywood and do all these crazy things. And when the executive was retiring after 36 years, they came to me. And I think it's one of the biggest honors of my life. So I went back because I truly believe that every mind in this room can help save pay channels in this country. And I go to city council on Wednesday to fight for it. And I'm speaking with our congressman right now and going to ask for more of a percentage. And I believe that truth is what prevails us. And I won't stop until I hope that we have a new pathway to speak to our state and people in the country for nonpartisan journalism in this country.
Thank you.
It's important.
Yeah.
I mean, my son's watching the news and I'm just freaking out, for what they're saying because they do not have the right voices even representing what they're talking about on the subjects. But I'm going to start running this all show.
Save that for your discussion. Because we're doing an assessment of your news environment. But yeah, let's move on.
Hey everybody, I'm Andy Kawanami from San Francisco. I'm the community media director. We have a public access station, community media center, SF Commons. I guess what really motivates me currently is just the challenge of navigating the current climate, and figuring out ways to kind of honor our position of being a community media center. And one of our focuses is really trying to get out into all the districts, all the neighborhoods, and really focus in and do some really hyper-local representation to make sure we're out there. What brings me joy right now, I think, is the opportunity to kind of unplug a little bit, not take as many Zoom meetings, hopefully over the next couple of days, be able to have those here in person and see everyone. So.
Hey folks, I'm Autumn LaVey-Renault. I'm the Executive Director of Davis Media Access in Davis, California. What informs my work as a former journalist before community media is a relentless drive to connect people and resources and solve problems. And I'm currently doing that. I'm on the plenary tomorrow morning going to be talking about a countywide information needs assessment project that I am currently leading. And what brings me joy is live music, good beer, and friends.
Hard to follow that.
Yeah.
I'll be brief. It's probably heard me talk about.
You heard Daryl.
Yeah, it's Daryl Holiday, Youth Speakers. Very happy to be here. Love to organize, love to mobilize, love to look at people, love to collaborate.
I'm Cheryl Gardner. I am a professor at Fresno State in the Media Communications and Journalism program. I work with Natalie, who was fabulous in this past Monday. Yesterday. My week is very confused right now. What motivates me right now is are the students. Because they're just fabulous to work with. I teach writing, mobile journalism, and multimedia production. And just, I teach a writing class, and the students are so eager to work on their stories that I will stay an hour or 2 hours after class just working one-on-one with them, because it's really fun when they start catching on to that journalistic style and they start transforming their writing ability. What is bringing me joy right now? Well, it's very stressful. When you're working for tenure, that's stressful.
Yeah. Yes.
So I find joy in making connections. I've done a lot of interfaith work in this area and community outreach work. So it's fun to have people in all different segments that you connect with, and I think that's really fun. And I'm renovating a mid-century home.
Oh, nice.
So it's very costly, but very fun.
Yes.
Hey everyone, Mike Wassenaar. We haven't met before. It's great to meet you. Great to see some old friends. Hopefully meeting some new friends here for the next couple of days. I'm the president and CEO of the Alliance for Community Media. I'm originally from Minnesota. I'm based in Washington, D.C. Actually, I'm based in Silver Spring because I actually have a vote for Senate and the House of Representatives. So democracy matters in this thing. So I'm proud to be a Marylander in that respect. What motivates my work? I became a communicator very, very young in life, doing youth radio work. Tried my best to work in public radio. Really, really hard. Part of it was a class thing, I think. It's kind of like an unsaid thing about a lot of the assumptions about what public media is supposed to be in America. It's very much, I'm convinced it's very much meant to be a class indicator. We don't really talk about that. What I realized along the way that there's something that's very, very powerful and meaningful for me when people realize that they're the subjects of their own history, and they're the makers of their own meaning, and they're tellers of their own story, rather than being the subject of someone else's tale, or the subject of the object of someone else's action. So that really motivates me. And it's the thing I think that unites a lot of the work that I do in communities all across the country that are profoundly different in many respects. And we misidentify the abuse that the media does to us, because we think we have a human relationship, but really it's not a human relationship we have with most media. So that helping people to create their own meaning motivates me. What's bringing me joy right now? Arsenal 7, PSV 1 this last week was a big, big motivator. My dog Charlie brings me joy. I feel like FDR and Fala, you need a friend in Washington, D.C. Charlie's great motivator. Although he apparently he found a rabbit carcass in the backyard this morning. So there's like a kill zone in my backyard. I'm not sure if it's him or if it's some other predator in the neighborhood. And then lately it's been cooking. I've been really kind of like leaning into my cooking muscles, doing a lot of really interesting things with pulses and beans, lots of really interesting Asian, Italian food.
If you want Indian food recipes.
I was going up on my Indian food recipes, trying to, and so really, that's been bringing a lot of joy. And part of that also is this whole thing of like sharing with other people. if you're ever in DC, let me know, because we love to have people over.
John and Chad.
John Higgins. I am from the University of San Francisco, retired just after the pandemic. I think what's motivated my work has been consistent. I first got involved with the NFLCP, National Federation of Local Cable Programmers, predecessor to the ACM, as an intern in the DC office with Sue Buskey in 1982. And various paths, as we all do, academia and practice and international work. I think the motivator that's really been common to that, and digital storytelling, which is another group that I really resonate with and work with, is watching people form connections and helping with that and being part of that, and also hearing really personal stories that come from the heart of usually of transformative moments. The thing that's bringing me joy is part of that as well. So, you know, there was this pandemic, and you guys went back to work and probably had these connections and everything. I've been blissfully gardening and taking walks on the beach, and it's been a lot more individualized with some connections. And one of the things that's bringing me joy now is rediscovering a group like this. So I haven't been to a conference in a long time. Last year in San Jose, excellent conference, thank you very much. But it really sort of reminded me of how wonderful the people are who were involved in this, if I can only remember their names. Thank God for the name tag. And also just the cycle. So seeing fresh faces to me, you know, and people that are newly involved, and how they're taking the old concepts that were worked with and either tossing them out or reinventing them or working with them. And I'm reminded of work that, you know, where my ideas, some of them came from Bob Devine and some of those people. And it's fun to see, Antoine, you taking some of that work. And then I really got inspired last conference at some of the, and this one, of some of the work that you've been doing. And I just think that recycling, not that it's recycling, but the growth, the praxis, if you will, is really just really, you know, if I had hair on the back of my neck, it would be rising right now. So that's my joy, and let's talk about digital storytelling sometime.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Chad.
Hey all, I'm Chad Johnson. I'm the CEO of Create TV San Jose in San Jose. What motivates my work essentially is building power, or helping to facilitate and catalyze building power for communities, shifting their position of power. That is what brings me joy too, is watching particularly our cohort programs when participants come in like this and they leave like this. I don't care if they don't make another film in their life. I know they're gonna go out into the world with a different sense of their own power. What also brings me joy is raising gobs of money so we can do more and more.
Hi, my name is Amelia Morris. I'm affiliated with CMAC, and I'm here in my personal capacity. These are kind of loaded questions today, but what motivates my affiliation with CMAC is I really care deeply about giving voices to people who traditionally don't have them and lifting those up. What's bringing me joy right now is my extracurricular activities. So CMAC, volunteering, spending time with my kids, and friends.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for, you know, indulging me in that. I know it takes some time. I did that in, oh, you want me to shout you out real quick?
Not really.
Okay. You can say your name, just say your name and where your affiliation.
Okay, very easy. So I'm gonna stand because my neck is crooked. And forgive me, I have gum. Bad move. Mike Sanchez, today marks 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day that I've been the executive director of CMAP TV in Gilroy. We are basically resurrecting CMAP TV. We live in a community, in an area that represents Gilroy, San Juan Bautista, Hollister, and San Diego County. We are in the Valley of Gold. There are so many voices, so many stories, so much empowerment that needs to take place so that we can rise up and give people voice. It is an honor and a privilege, and at times scary, to be where I'm at. Sorry. It's also what brings me joy, so I'm not gonna have to answer that question. We built a team in this short time of 11 amazing people who are all grinding it out to make something of CMAC. And I wasn't looking for the job. It kind of fell on my lap, so to speak. I come from digital media marketing and publishing, and so it was a natural step in a way. Coming in, it was a challenge that many of us have faced challenges before, but the opportunities are the other side of the challenge, right? Yeah. And so we've been pushing through, and we've created so many opportunities, and we've got so much more to do. I'm having the time of my life. Nice. It's absolutely amazing. Best thing about it is I get to raise up people like this young man right here. So you're all.
Hi, I'm Rodrigo Ramirez Perez. I am the programming manager at CMC TV. It is, I just started in October. I'm also a GAF student, a film student at Gavin College. What motivates my work? Honestly, creating content that not only is educational but entertaining for the community, and also giving them the spotlight and the microphone to voice. I mean, yeah, give the community a voice, because we're usually overlooked by like big corporations, yeah, digital news. What brings me joy? I guess working with community and making an impact, and the more people we work with, it creates avenues to create more content and make more connections, and it feels like we're actually making a big impact.
Yeah, great. All right, so thank you for that word, impact, influence, affecting change, right? We are, I'm seeing the time here. We can do this. But what's going to be required to do this, to get through this, is actually, so I'm going to need, first of all, I'm going to ask you all to self-organize in the groups of 4. I think that'll work here. And maybe if it's a group of 5, that's okay. So turn to people who are in proximity and you organize with them. And then what I would like you to do is test yourself and see. I do also, I'm going to ask for someone to be a note taker, a reporter in the group, just to get down like the main concepts and ideas that have come together from your discussion, and we'll report out, we'll share that out. And so what we're going to exercise is let's go through this. And I thought about, I was like, we could all like just open form, but I'm like, I like to, my students tell you, I do group, small group all the time. So think, pair, share, that's my jam, okay? So what I would like for you all to do is let's see if we can take 10 minutes, maybe I can yell 15. This is going to be really quick, so keep your thoughts like concise. This is actually why I like to take the time to, actually people to share, because that level sets where we are. And so you know who's in the room, you know what the mindset is, right? And some people have already articulated some things that have touched on some of these points that I'm asking you to discuss in your small groups. So if you need to write these down, what does your local news and information landscape look like right now? Like what is missing? What can be contributed? What are essential services that you provide in your community? We've heard a lot of that already. So thank you for sharing that. So what do you do that you see as irreplaceable? Okay? What kind of future vision do you have for local news in your community? What kind of local news and information does your community need? That kind of like dovetails back in this. And if you can get to it, next to sustainable revenue, what do you need for growth? What do you need to grow this program? And is it tied to doing some local news initiative or something like that? So, all right, let's just take some, like I said, keep your thoughts concise, and I'm making up new words. That's what academics do. And yeah, if you can have a reporter, that would be great. And so we'll, at 11:36-ish or so, we'll reconvene and we'll move on to the next exercise. All right? Let's resolve. Wrap up your thoughts. Let's bring it back. Yes.
used to be a desert of motivation. Now there's just 1,000 million voices
Okay, all right, time. When you can hear the sound of my voice, clap once. When you hear the sound of my voice, clap twice. When you hear the sound of my voice, clap 3 times. Thank you so much. Okay, so I know that was tight, but I appreciate your being efficient with this. What I would like, because there's a closing exercise that's very important that I want us to do. And even though we just may have 10 minutes for it, I still want us to dive into it. Maybe we take these thoughts all out into the world and either with us, okay? But real quick, can we just go around and can we just get some high-level points? Also, if possible, for people who took notes, can y'all see me and we can coordinate a way to I can get the notes from you? Because we want to, I was talking to Mike, we want to synthesize all this because this is knowledge production that's happening. We're recording it here, so I'm going to do a transcribe it. Have one of my research assistants clean that transcript up. But let's real quick and get just to high-level points, takeaways around the room, and then we'll move into our final exercise. Yeah.
Let's get all the questions or just...
No, just high level. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had a mixed group here, some from the reporting side, some from the community media. So a lot of us are trying to develop news programs. We do community media, community candidate forums for politicians in the area, local politicians. So that's what we're trying to do with our landscape right now for journalism. And then what we want to see in the future is kind of more hyper-local stories that are being reported on that get brought to us as community media centers to report on. And then I think developing news programs for some folks here who don't have it or who are looking to do that. And I think that's as far as we know. But we talked about a lot. But
Great. All right, thank you. Next group right here. Let's go. High level.
We ran out of time, but yeah. Let's see. High level.
Okay. Well, let me do it from memory, which is not much. One focal point for us was there needs to be a better job of explaining what our various organizations are. Our own community does not understand, or much of our own community does not understand that we exist, and if we exist, what we have. So that was probably one of the unifying things.
Okay.
And Roger says, we need to tell the story about us to our community so they have a better understanding of what.
Great, thank you. Richard's group.
Yeah, we found parallel between what was happening with the local news in Maryland and with Fresno with the B. But the response with that was also quite similar in terms of hyper-local news, like you guys pointed out. John also spoke about, in terms of San Francisco, hyper-local news, how that's being collated and aggregated. And then in terms of the future, we ran out of time, but it came up that Cheryl was a part of this conversation with the BBC and how artificial intelligence is slowly being integrated in as these aggregators for data points and journalistic listening. And so kind of like the ethics and the discourse around that was right around where we stopped.
Thank you. Autumn's group, I think it's the last, right?
Yeah, so the group described actually a variety of local media kind of landscapes. Some described news deserts, others had rich ecosystems, but that were very underfunded. We talked about kind of the tension between the role of community media in terms of helping folks generate opinion content versus fact reporting, and what the definition of journalism is, whether we need to broaden that. And we talked, some programs have had some good success in the context of COVID and starting more active local coverage that the community was really interested in hearing. Yeah, that's what I took down. Anyone else?
All right. Thank you all so much.
One more recording group.
Oh, my phone.
No, we had a good
Okay, I'm sorry. Hey, everybody's included. Hey, you know, we got everyone here. So. Come on, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, okay. So one of the big things that we talked about was number one, trying to get access to the entire area, especially like in smaller areas where, like on our island, where there's not anyone else providing the news coverage, except for like maybe there was one instance of an AI broadcaster, which like the community had a big problem with.
Yeah.
Because that's not genuine and it's not good reporting, which led to the conversation of needing a trustworthy source as like part of that. You know, from my perspective. We're looking to bring that into like our production company and have somebody to actually like do the reporting and like do the boots on the ground work to find what's going on and then share it with everybody else in the community in a transparent way. But that's that.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We actually, if I may, we have one more thing I, of course, forgot. And that is, there was a question about what is irreplaceable? Yeah, what is irreplaceable? And one of the answers that we had, what was irreplaceable, is obviously a lot of the traditional local news has dissolved in our community, where we are. And one of the things that's irreplaceable is the video archives that we have. That's turned out to be the video history of our city, which they do not have a replacement.
No.
So it's become kind of the library of our city, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah. So CCTV in Burlington, Vermont, I had the honor to actually go visit them. They have one of the most immaculate archives I've seen of a community television operation, community media center, and they just put out, they dug into that archive and created a documentary that I hope we'll be able to screen at the National Conference in Boston. So it's a little plug
What's the name of the group again?
CCTV, so Crittenden Community Television. Yep, so Lauren Glenn is the director for a long time. Actually, is transitioning out. But yeah, check that out.
Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah. All right, so, and we can do this. I'd say probably 8 minutes. But this is about to be a little shift right here, mindset shift.
Okay.
So I want to imagine before we leave. This is a thought experiment we'll take 7 minutes, real quick. If we had to start from the ground up, no channels, no antenna, no transmitter, if you were in a place like, Gainesville has assets, so I want to say that, but in Gainesville, we don't have a Alelo, we don't have a Davis Media Access, we don't have a Creative, we don't have that in Gainesville, Florida. So one thing that I'm thinking right now, I'm like, wow, how do I begin to build with the community to form something that could be like that, but it's responsive directly to that community's needs? Because that's one of the things that makes all of what we do unique. Is we're not uniform, we're not homogenous, right? So, but how do we start? So turn back in your groups real quick, and this is a thought experiment, and I want you to take this out into the world with you. Maybe you can, exercise this with your staff or your board or whoever. But if we had to start from the ground up, how would we start? Where would we start? So we're actually in the community, a space. It's a library, a gym. What is that? A cultural center, right? Who do we start with? Who are the people that walk with you that can actually be, is it community organizers? Is it people that are working in labor movements? Is it people working, doing union work? Who is that? Is it youth, right? Youth development. Y'all get where I'm going with this. Why do we even start this? And then what are some principles that fuel our goals? So I know we don't have time to get through all this, but I definitely want to share this with you because I think it's some good food for thought. It's a good thought exercise, but let's take, 5 minutes in your small groups and just share out, and please just take some notes. Okay, thank you. So yeah, real quick, let me get some resonant points from your group so that we get it on, we get it recorded, and also a reminder. So folks could, I'll give you my email too. So reporters, if you can see me, figure out how we can get your notes as well. So I gotta take a picture so you can figure it out. All right, let's start. Let's start on this one here. We start with last time. So over here. Let's start over here. All right, you know what? We'll go. Let's really flip it. Let's go to the back to Chad's group and start there.
It was my group. Now it's Chad.
Oh,
Talk about shifting power over here.
Yeah, we sharing power here today. That's right. Okay. I'm not sad about whoever working like that. Your report.
You want me to report back? Okay, so we talked about building a program from the ground up, doing a needs assessment, listening to the community, actively reaching out to partners like community centers, nonprofits, CBOs, for those familiar with that term. We talked about building a program that actively develops youth skills in the community, job training, which we've seen has been very popular in certain programs. Also, we talked about developing a program as a source of community organizing, identifying leaders of specific communities that have been excluded historically, and listening to their voices and accessing those communities through those leaders. We talked about promoting resources from the jump, like mental health, access to health, and then opportunities there in terms of promoting community media as a way to promote resources that you might think of, not necessarily think of in the context of the arts.
Great, great. Thank you all so much. Yeah. Okay, next we'll get this right here.
Yeah. Okay, so our big thing that we talked about was finding like the networking, like kind of we're doing that now. But also that's where you do start is by finding those groups that are already like nonprofits that are already starting something and doing something, and then finding a trustworthy source of leaders that already have an influence that's going to actually be your starting points to kind of have a spokesperson to go off of. That really fosters the communication that we need to share. One voice to allow us to bring in that accessibility, to train up more communities and allow that. But then also there's the technicality of bringing in like the social media, the fundraising, the press releases, and all of that to get involved with whatever organizations like the government is already supporting, and start from there, and then see how that seed gets planted, and then how it can grow out into more equitable opportunities for the community in general. Then the principles, the accessible resources, and engaging with the community convening with the community is like the best way that we figured is to start and then to go from there.
Thank you so much.
So our discussion was really interesting. We talked a lot about starting with trust, like community trust, whether that's going out and tabling and actually being on the ground, and meeting with different organizations. But we also discussed the First Amendment and being guardians of the First Amendment as a community platform, not alienating one side or the other. So making sure that we kind of, there was something that we said that was carving out a wide path through the middle, so beginning in the middle, carving out as wide a path as possible, and then the rest will come. And then making sure we have diverging voices, and also just building those outreach programs that do reach people who don't understand that their voices are also needed. Maybe some people already know that, and they congregate around media centers because they want to use that platform, regardless of their viewpoints. But we also need to go and reach out to the communities that don't know that their voice is needed. So having that sort of like duality of representing a neutral space, but also making sure we reach out to communities that we also need their voices to balance out, pretty much the landscape. So I think that's it.
Thank you all so much. Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's.
So we successfully answered none of those
Homework.
We were starting to get a little bit momentum, and then we ran out of time. But we did actually come back and validate the original premise of why it makes sense to think about how would we to start from the ground up, because we had one very good example of an organization, a media company that's been in business for 35 years, and been doing its thing very successfully, and its revenue just starting to crater. And the director realizing that he had to, in essence, think about how does he start from the ground up, because he has to reinvent his organization because the revenue is cratering. So it's a relevant question.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Our group discussed, and what we kind of came up with was the way we started would be universities in terms of like local touch points, in terms of web-based touch points, and you rebuild your website, your web platforms, get your socials going. And the who of those people, we said students, but I'm going to extend that and say learners. I'm going to extend that and say curious cats. So with that, to provide some sort of balance and structure, we say retired journalists, people with experience in activation and spreading this message. Then the why of it is that's where Twitch and YouTube streamers and podcasters came up, and what I kind of gathered from it was that influence needs to have a positive impact to our shared reality. And furthermore, the why of it also is because oneness is not one voice, it's alignment through many voices, and that from a principle standpoint comes from what I will call unalienation and loosely non-polarity. And
okay. All right. Awesome. Shout out to the lifelong learners. All right. Curious cat. Right. I'm gonna make a T-shirt. Curious cat. Yes, that sounds like a little fundraiser. ACM. Curious cat. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I know we all know this, but I find that it's really just important to reinforce that the First Amendment not only gives the right to speak, but the right to hear varying opinions. And I think that's something that people like Jeff Bezos really need to remember when we talk about the First Amendment. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, Antoine, I just want to addendum to what we're talking about here is that I think that with the news generally, the single biggest problem in the news sphere today is the fact that nobody agrees on what's reality.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, if we walked out of here and we didn't say that, we'd be doing ourselves a huge disservice. If we're starting from the ground up, I just got to tell you, what is reality? Because, like I was saying to our group, if you talk to a person that listens to Fox News every day, you tell them a fact that you learned, they go, oh, you learned that from MSNBC. Whether or not you did, and they just don't listen to you. So it's like, how do you bridge that divide? And if we're just talking about on the local level, believe it or not, I mean, San Francisco Bay Area, there's a lot more Trumpers than we would imagine in that sphere. And a lot of them might feel like stifled or like their voice can't be heard or whatever. What we want to do is we want to agree on what is the set of facts. We're talking about news, the news. What is the facts? What happened? Then we can decide on policy.
I think connected to facts, what's very important is I heard a group talking about trust, right? And so in establishing that trust, and there's and having the trust that can be built in the centers, like in our communities there, I think it is very special. And building that trust over time can help hopefully chip away and erode the break from the power of that hegemonist, like that narrative that is breaking all this like facts away, like polarization, all of that, right? So I know people have got. We are at 12:07. I just want to acknowledge time, folks, because there is lunch waiting on you.
Lunch could wait. That's all right.
It's a good word. Autumn, real quick,
Quick follow-up comment to that was lean into that language when you talk about what you do. We do not talk about public access and educational access per se. We say that we are a trusted partner who has developed strategic partnerships countywide.
Yeah.
And here's who we work with, boom, boom, boom. So lean into that language.
And thinking about your key words, like, civic engagement, civic, literacy, education, right?
Job skills training.
Job skills development, workforce development. Yeah.
I got it.
Can I see a recommendation real quick?
Yes.
One of the things, if you guys are looking at partnering with the media, particularly the ethnic media, because a lot of times they're hyper-local to specific groups, and you're trying to build into those groups, there's a coalition called Ethnic Media Services, if you're from California, ran by Sandy Close, who's been in the media for over 50 years. I would highly recommend that you look them up. They probably have over 200 local media from large to small to almost every ethnicity around. And if you want to get into those communities, being part of that association or working with them can get you connected. So I just highly recommend Ethnic Media Services, look them up.
Okay, all right. And utmost high respect, in a way of a cultural tradition. We'll let the elder in the room have, and I say that with the highest respect, have the final party word.
I just want to bring it full circle.
Yes.
Where we talk about George Stoney as my inspiration and motivation. He was the first person to put a video camera in my hands. It was 1969, 1970. Local community was in a race riot, closed down the school. Why was it? Polarization.
You have to restate the question.
Polarization we may be experiencing, right? And so what he did is he created rap groups. He brought the camera in, and he created the dialogue with the technology where they would not speak to one another. Predominantly European ancestry, African American, would not dialogue. And so he created these rap groups. He put the camera in our hands. We told our story, and then he found the common ground and expanded the common ground to resolve and mediate the problem. That is the genesis of our movement.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Round of applause for yourself. My email is up there, AK2@UFL.